So we'll do now in the Mamorim Melukotim. This is in the second volume, the first Maimer. This is the Maimer בשלום נפשי מקרב כי ברבים היו עמדי. The Rebbe said this on Shabbos Parshas Vayetze, which was Yud Kislev, and Yud Kislev is the day that the Metal Rebbe, the second Chabad Rebbe, the Rebbe Dov Ber, was freed from prison, and he also said the verse in the Yom Tehillim, the Pada B'Sholem Nafshi is the verse in the if you do the Tehillim divided by the month, it's in Yom Yud. So he was saying the pasuk Pada B'Sholem Nafshi just like his father on Yutas Kislev, but he said the Shir Tillim according to the day. It's also Yom Shlishi for Tuesdays, and he was freed during that recitation of the pasuk. So this is a Maimer which is said in association with Yud Kislev. It says here this was the Maimer Gimel. The Rebbe said 3 Maimorim at the time, and this was the third of the Maimorim in the year Tafshin Chav Beis. So it's Pada B'Sholem Nafshi Mikrovli Tafshin Chav Beis. They said later on what they did is they published it. This wasn't published right away. So it says that it was published in a booklet which was for Yudalit Kislev Tafshin Nun Beis. Yudalit Kislev, of course, is the Rebbe's wedding anniversary. And over there, it says that in honor of Yud Kislev, which is the redemption of the Mittler Rebbe, and also the Yom HaBoyer, the clear day of the 14th of Kislev, which is the day of marriage of the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin, Rabbonis HaTzidkonis, the Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka. This Maimer includes also an explanation in the Maimer that starts with V'chol Banayich Limudei Hashem that the previous Rebbe said in Shabbos Parshas Vayetze, when the Chosen, the Rebbe, was called for the Torah. The Rebbe got his Aliyah in Shabbos Parshas Vayetze. So the Rebbe said a Maimer V'chol Banayich, and then again on Monday, this was Vayetze, it was already after Shabbos, which was the Parsha of Yishlach. And that was the night, they call it the Chosen Mol, the meal for the Chosen in the Yeshiva in Tomchei Tmimim in Varsha. That is the heading on the Maimer of this Chol Banayich Lebuda Hashem. And this is the first Maimer of that collection of Maimorim, the Drushe Chasana, which were published in a special booklet called Drushe Chasana Tov Reish Peites. That was in the year Tov Reish Peites, the Rebbe Shabbos, the Rebbe's Maimer. This was given out, the date for this publication in Tafshin Nun Beis was Erev Shabbos Kodesh Parshas Vayetze, Friday, the Parshas Vayetze, Tafshin Nun Beis. All right, so this is all the introduction to the Maimer, and now we'll do the Maimer itself. Recited the Shmaya Shabbos Parshas Vayetze Yud Kislev Maimer Gimel Hey Tafshin Chav Beis. So the pasuk says, "Pada b'sholem nafshi mikrovli ki berabim hoyu imodi," that he redeemed in a peaceful way my soul. This was King David saying that Hashem redeemed my soul in a peaceful way, mikrov li, from the war that was taking place to me. As we'll see, as the Rebbe will explain, a war is also, even though it's opponents, but it's krov. You have to go face to face in order to battle. So that is called krov li. The battle is called also krav, coming close to face one another. And the reason he says he was redeemed with peace is kiberabim hoyu imodi. Literally, in the simple meaning, it means because the many who, even though they were fighting against me, they were on the other side. They were going with King Shaul, who was attacking King David, but yet they were really with me. They were praying for the success of King David. The berabim hoyu imodi. So Mavair Baal Hageula b'Mamorim Dibur Hamaschil Zeh. So the Baal Hageula, meaning the one whose redemption is Yud Kislev. That's what the Rebbe said. The Maimer, that is the Mittler Rebbe. So the Mittler Rebbe in a Maimer that begins with this opening, Pod B'Sholem Nafshi, Shenitfas B'Sifrei Sharei Teshuvah, which has been printed in his book called Sharei Teshuvah. The Hatam al Zeh Shem Milchama Nikraz B'Shem Krav. The reason why a war is called with the name of Krav, a war is called a Krav. It's Meloshin Kiruv, that comes from the language of closeness. Even though that war is the opposite of closeness. So why would we call a war closeness? The idea is what is the idea of war is each one of the two warriors wants to be beating up, win over the other one, and to subdue him, be included in him. He doesn't want him to be an opponent anymore. He wants to subjugate him so that he would be included in him. In order to accomplish this, that the one who wages war against him, that he should be included in him. It's specifically through closeness that he comes close to him. That's how he can subdue him. It's kirav. That's why war is Meloshin Kiruv. It comes from closeness. In order to subdue him, you got to get close to him to be able to subdue him. Similar is also in the war between the Nefesh Elikis and the godly soul and the animal soul. The Nefesh HaBaham is the animal soul. The Iker HaMilchama, when is the main war? Hibishas HaTfilah. That's during davening. Davening is the time that your godly soul wages war with the animal soul. As we say in the Zohar, Shas Sloisova, Shas Krova. The time of war is the time, a time of prayer. Shas Sloisa is the time of war. Shabichdei Shehavoida. Tefillah. So in order that the service or the davening, the nefesh halikis, that the godly soul. So if you want that your service, your davening, that the godly soul is davening, tifel, it should impact benefesh habahamis onto the animal soul. Shetuchlal benefesh halikis, so that should be included in the godly soul. What does it mean? What do we mean that the godly soul should be included? That it also should want and love Hashem. Shagam nefesh habahamis tiyelo ahavas Hashem. So also the animal soul should have a love for Hashem, which is b'chol levavcha b'shnei yitzarecha. As we say, b'haftas Hashem lekecha b'chol levavcha. It doesn't say b'chol libecha. It says levavcha with two vays because it references the both inclinations. So you want to include in your love, in your davening, also the nefesh habahamis. how could the nefesh elikis impact and include the nefesh abahamis? While yidei shenefesh elikis mislabeshes benefesh abahamis, that is by means that the godly soul dresses up in the nefesh abahamis. It comes close to the nefesh abahamis. It dresses up in the nefesh abahamis, the animal soul. Shahais boy nushala nefesh elikis. The meditation of the godly soul is in such matters, and in such a manner, shegam nefesh habahamis lahasik, so that also the animal soul is able to understand. You thinking and reflecting and explaining it in a way that the nefesh habahamis, the animal soul, understands as well. That is the closeness that you can impact the nefesh habahamis. As opposed to when the prayer is only because of the neshama itself, then it doesn't impact the animal soul. As explained in that maimer of the Mittler Rebbe in Shari Tshuva in Pod base. V'hinei biru nefesh habahamis al yidei shenefesh elikis mislabeshes benefesh habahamis hu inyan shemelchama. This sorting out of the animal soul by means that the nefesh elikis dresses up in nefesh habahamis, that is an idea of war, kiniskar le'il, as mentioned earlier, that davening, shas loisa, shas krova, this is war. The Indian hamilchama, what is the idea of war? Sheyesh menagid, that there is an opponent, v'tzorich lilchem imay, and you gotta wage war with it. That is war. What does it mean? Poda b'sholem nafshi, Indian poda b'sholem nafshi. What does it mean that redeemed in a peaceful way my soul? Who? Shapadiyo, the nefesh halikis mahagolus, the nefesh habahamis, that the way the godly soul is redeemed from the exile of the animal soul, eina ba'oifun the milchama, is not in a manner of war, kiim, rather, shal yidei gilui oir elyoin, Mizbatlin horitzoinus de nefesh habahamis. There is a revelation of a supreme light, and all the desires of the animal souls are negated, they fall away. Therefore, you don't need to wage war. You don't have to battle, because there is a revelation of a supreme light, and automatically all the desires of the nefesh habahamis fall to the side, and you don't need wage war. Become a mekoines, like explained in many areas, in many places. And also the Maimer in the idea of the sorting out, the way the bitter is accomplished through the occupation of Torah. Torah, you don't have to dress up like tefillah with the nefesh habahamis and wage war, but when you learn Torah, you're revealing it's from above. That's not in a way of war. What does war mean? That means when you wage war, meaning there is an opponent, but you beat him, you win through war. But what it means is through the revelation of the light of Torah, that is negating the Ra, there is no Ra. So that's generally Torah. Torah versus Tefillah, but in Tefillah itself, there is the ability, a higher level, in which also you don't have to wage war. It'll be pada b'sholem. Similarly, by davening. Through a love which is beyond the reason and understanding, which is comes from the level of Chaya Yichida, the elevated levels in the neshama. So all the desires of the animal souls are negated, and therefore, the nefesh alikis mahagolus the nefesh habahamis. And how is the nefesh alikis redeemed from the exile of the nefesh habahamis? The sholem, it's in a way of peace. That means poda b'sholem nafshi, redeemed in a peaceful way, my soul. Either through the level of Torah, which is mevarer, through a revelation, the Torah, the Ra gets bottled, or through tefillah, when you reveal the higher level than reason, the level of Chaya Yechida, then you get out of exile, not in a way of war, but in a way of Poda B'Sholem to Sholem. He explains over there in the Maimer, that the true redemption in soul, that is specifically by revealing the level of Yechidah. The bitul horitzoin is the nefesh abahamis shal yidei ha'avo shelamayla metam vadas shemitzad hamakiv dechayom. When the negation of the wills of the nefesh abahamis through the love that we're talking about, that comes beyond the reason in us, that comes only from the makif, from the surrounding of the level of chaya, hurak mipnei shaharotzi the nefesh eliki. So then, when it's pushed away, it's only because the want of the godly soul, the bechinas chaya, mizkaber ala rotzi the nefesh habahamis. It overpowers the will of the nefesh habahamis. So the way chaya would negate the nefesh habahamis is by overpowering it with the rotzin of the nefesh halakis. So why do we call this b'sholem if this is also overpowering? Ella, so he explains in the bracket, shemitzad toikev harotzin the nefesh halakis, because of the force of the desire of the godly soul, mizmatlin memela harotzin is the nefesh habahamis. So automatically, the desires of the nefesh habahamis fall away, are negated, but they're still negated. But the nefesh the chaya, the makif of chaya, impacts that force of rotzin, their mizbat. How is that difference than the regular avodah of nefesh, ruach, and neshama? The bavodah shall pitam vadas shemitzad bechinas naran, when this service is based on reason and rationale, which is based on the levels of nefesh, ruach, neshama of the soul. So then, habirur da nefesh habahamis, how is this sorting out the animal soul, who al yidei sha nefesh halikis mislabeshes benefesh habahamis, that is through the godly soul dressing itself up in the animal soul, and wages war with her. But when we talk about the level of chaya, the nefesh halikis, through the force of the will of the godly soul, which is a desire which is higher than reason, mizbatlin haim haritzonis and nefesh habahamis memela. Then they are memela. You don't dress up to wage war with them, but just the force of the desire of nefesh halikis from the level of chaya, which is higher than tam, they're negated automatically memela. But mekom habitul shalahem hurak mitzad his gabrus nefshalikis, but yet the way they are subjugated is still because the overpowering of the godly soul. But it's not that they are in essence subjugated. And therefore, this is not yet the true level of shalom. So while the level of chaya does not engage in battle, but rather its will overpowers the nefesh habahamis, but yet that's not really considered true level of shalom. Poda b'shalom nafshi. The true concept of poda b'shalom nafshi through a level of peace is by the revelation of the madrega of yichida. The level of yichida which is in the soul has no corresponding level in the other side. Yichida is only in the nefesh elikis, only in the tzad of kedusha. As we say, bevua de bevua les luhu. There is no shadow of a shadow, which means that they can only shadow the level of levels of the neshama, naran, and chaya, but there is no shadow. They cannot shadow. They cannot mimic. There is no yichida there. Lochein bittul haritzoynes the nefesh habahamis al yidei gila hayichida. So how the ritzoynes, the desires of the animal soul, are negated when we talk about that the yichida is revealed. It's not because yichida is revealed, so the desires of the nefesh habahamis are negated. When you employ the level of yichida, there is no place, there is no allowance for any strange desire. So there is no desire in the beginning. To begin with, there's no other desire. And this is the true level of poda b'shalom. V'zehu poda b'shalom nafshi goymer. This is the meaning that poda b'shalom nafshi berabim hoyu imodi. We'll give a reason. Because the many were with me. The berabim hoyu imodi hu tam. Because Rabim was with me is a reason, key. That's the key. Al poda b'shalom nafshi. Why poda b'shalom nafshi? Because barabim. What is the meaning barabim? Ki ha'avoida de barabim hoyu imodi. What is the avoida? We say Rabim were with me. He is oiridus begilu hayichida. That is the awakening, the arousal, and the revelation of yichida. Kimavur baruch ha'maimer, as explained the maimer, that is the barabim hoyu imodi. Val yidei gilu hayichida. And through the revelation of Yechida, Apadiya, the Nefesh, Habahamis, Nefesh Elikis, the redemption, the Shalom, and that's in a complete level of Shalom. Okay, let's try to do another Ois. Gimel. So we need to understand the Kivon Shal Yidei Gila Yechida. Since we're saying when there is the revelation of the Yechida, which is ha'avoida de barabim hoyu imodi. That is the service where rabim hoyu imodi, which is gilu yichida, as explained in the Maimer, ein mokem lemenagdim. So there is no place for opponents. So why do we need redemption there? So basically saying there's no opponents in that level. But umizeh sheberabim hoyu imodi. But we're saying Rabim Oyemodi Hutam, it's a reason Poda b'shalom nafshi. That's the reason why he redeemed peacefully, is because Berabim. But Berabim, there should be no opponents in the first place. The Tamu Asiba Shalifnei Ha'inyan Shemesuba Mimeno. A reason is the cause that comes ahead of what is comes of it. So what comes of it is Pada B'Sholem, and the reason is B'Rab Moyimodi. So it has to be that there is still a need for B'Sholem Nafshi. Is mashma shagam la'achre ha'inyan de B'Rab Moyimodi, even after we have this concept of B'Rab Moyimodi, which is Gilu HaYichida, revelation of Yichida, tzricha nefesh ha'elokis lebediyah. The godly soul still needs to be redeemed. Elo shabdi b'sholom, but it is peacefully. But what kind of the pediyah is there when there is no menagit, since we're talking about Yichida? Move on, and even more is not understood. Who tam al poda b'sholem nafshi mikrovli, since the B'Rabim Hoyimodi is a reason for redeeming him peacefully, mikrovli, from the war, mashma. So it appears the noise of in addition, that even after there is B'Rabim Hoyimodi, the reason key B'Rabim that comes first, tzricha nefesh elokis nafshi libdi yistam. So my godly soul, pada b'sholem nafshi, but also it says mikrovli tzricha gam libdiya ma'amechama shekenegda. Mikrovli meaning from the war with me, from a war that opposed me. We're not just talking about redemption. We're talking redemption from somebody who's waging war. It's mikrovli. Would seem harigam kshanefesh abahamis hukiyoshon. Why? That means that the nefesh abahamis is still really fully engaged in war, because even when the nefesh abahamis is like sleeping, and then later he can get up, but while he's sleeping, at least then then he's not waging war against nefesh elokis. We wouldn't call that mikrovli. It's not the time of war. And for sure, if the desires of the nefesh abahamis are negated, the arotzon the nefesh elokis, the b'chinas chaya of the nefesh elokis rotzon level of chaya, which overpowers the retzonos of the nefesh abahamis, it's more than just the nefesh abahamis sleeping. It's been beaten already. So you already have the level of chaya. Coming to the level of yichida, so how does it apply? Which is B'Rabim Hoyimodi. The yichida, then there's B'Rabim Hoyimodi, which is the level of yichida. Shows ein mokum klal l'retzonos nefesh abahamis. There is no room at all for the desire of the nefesh abahamis. And here we're saying that the godly soul needs to be redeemed mikrovli from a war that is waged against her. The Shlomo Rabbiyu can say the explanation. The fact that it says Rabim Hoyimodi, there is a mashma kenal. From this, it's understood. Shapoda mikrovri hu le'achre Rabim Hoyimodi. From this, we see, as we said before, that even after there was mikrovli, after Rabim Hoyimodi, Hashem still has to redeem us from the war. That it is in order to hint, even one who is on a low level, personal low level, that also the godly soul, not only his level of yichida, person whose godly soul is hidden. To the extent it's so hidden that you have the animal soul fighting against the godly soul. Yet, by thinking about yichida, thinking about B'Rabim Hoyimodi, and his decision that your conduct should fit the level of yichida b'nefesh, which is Barabim Hoyimodi. So then, even at that lower level, Pediyas Nafshe Lekis Mamulchomes, the Nefesh Bahamis, his godly soul is redeemed from the war of Nefesh Bahamis. Poda Nafshi Mikrovli, the Shalom is in a way of Shalom. That means that even at the lower level, you still are redeemed by Shalom, even if your godly soul is Behelim, as we will continue.